him a plus. He's a switch hitter, too.
We're going to Burlington, Ontario, which is just outside of Hamilton. Brian is standing by. Go ahead, Brian, you're up.
Yes, how are you doing, Mr. Gillick? I'd like to congratulate you on a very good year.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, I have nothing against Cito Gaston, but I was wondering maybe like a guy like Billy Martin, because I see a lot of fundamental mistakes, like not middle A bunch down, and a lot of base running mistakes. And I think a guy like that would really, you know, he's a master at that kind of a thing, and I'd like to see if we possibly get a coach like that.
Would your nerves be able to take Billy Martin?
Yes, I was a Yankee fan before a Blue Jay fan, but I'm a Blue Jay fan now, and I was a great admirer of Billy Martin's.
Okay, well, I think for the suggestion, right now, you know, in our mind, I think that probably we're going to certainly think about having Cito back. We haven't made a decision, and he hasn't. And I think that the one thing is that when a guy comes in the middle of the season, it's really tough sometimes to work on the fundamentals that you have to. There's a lot of other things going on, and I think that if Cito did take the job and did come back with us, there's going to be some priorities, such as bunting from the fundamental standpoint, such as bunting, hitting cutoff man, things of that nature. I think that he'll work on. So I think next year that you'll see some improvement. And the other thing you have to remember is we got a bunch of young guys in this club. Everybody thinks that we've got an older club, but we've got a bunch of young people, and sometimes it takes young people a long time to really master fundamentals. You tell them once, you got to tell them 10 times or 100 times. So you got to give them a chance.
You know, it's funny, though, the reputation that Jimmy Williams had in baseball, that he was really good in teaching fundamentals, and yet everybody who looked at your club this year said, gee, they were brutal in fundamentals. So what happened?
Well, I think that, you know, when people say fundamentals, I think for the most part they're talking about bunting. You know, we miss a cutoff man. Junior missed a cutoff guy here the other night. Mosby missed a cutoff man. But other than the fact, I think the most glaring fundamental mistake is usually when you need a bunt and somebody needs to put one down and we don't get it done. And I think that's probably the most glaring fundamental mistake that we make. Other than that, as I say, we do miss our cutoff men from time to time, but other than that, and sometimes, as I say, with young guys, base running mistakes happen. And
like double steals where the guy on first base forgets to run at the same time.
Well, yeah, that can happen, and a lot of young guys, as I say, it takes some time to learn how to play this game. It's not an easy game to play.
No, it obviously isn't. Then again, you guys ended up as one of 4 teams left at the end of the season, so, I mean, it wasn't a disastrous year.
No, that's right, but again, as I said earlier, we'd like to have gone on and like to have done better and been in the finals against San Fran.
Pete is standing by in Toronto. What do you got to say for yourself tonight, Pete?
I'd like to congratulate Pat on his timely transactions, which helped turn the ball club around, first of all. And what I was also wondering is, since Dwayne Ward has had an erratic year, he's been very, very sharp at times, and he's been rather erratic at other times. If any consideration has been made as to seeing if he could be made a starter next year, possibly replacing Mike Flanagan. He has such a lively fastball, very similar to Dave Stieb, and his walks and wild pitches and things like that wouldn't probably hurt him as much if he was a starting pitcher.
He was a starting pitcher when he began his career. He was a starting pitcher with the Atlanta club, and when he came over with us, he was a starting pitcher. But really, I'll tell you, his repertoire of pitches are really best suited to relief. He's basically a hard sinker fastball pitcher with a hard breaking ball, and we think that's his slot. And we're going to work with Dwayne, and we're going to continue, I think, to go with him in the bullpen. We're thinking about, as I said to Pat, we need another starting pitcher to go in there, so hopefully we're going to make an adjustment. But right now, I think that we're going to stick with Ward in the bullpen. We think that's one of our strengths, even though he didn't have a good year down there. But when you've got Hinkie and Ward, along with Wells and Acker down there, we think we've got one of the better bullpens. And Ward's the kind of guy that can throw day in and day out. He has no problem with his arm. So right now, I think we're going to stick with him as a reliever.
Well, I've said it many times in the past. I don't mind saying it again with him sitting beside me. You're not going to find anybody more candid than Pat Gillick. If there's a question that you want to have him answer, he'll do so. But he'll have to do it after this timeout.
tops from England. Come on, let's really hear it for them.
So when you're smiling, say that soon.
That's one small step for man.
Here's the shot, right by the sword, and they're done, and sword to Canada. Hello, Canada!
Yokomotion. Racing drivers know what it is. It's a feeling of control and exhilaration, of reliability. Yokohama is world famous for it for over 70 years. Racing is the ultimate test of tire research and development. That's how Yokohama perfected its high-quality line of long-lasting performance radials for your light truck, family sedan, or sports car. Next time, ask your dealer for Yokohama Performance Radials.
A store with this kind of selection just doesn't sound as good as a store with this kind of selection. So imagine how good a place like Granada sounds. All famous brand names. Technique, Sony, Hitachi, Bose, Panasonic. The best names, plus the best prices guaranteed whether you buy, lease, or rent. It's one of the advantages of dealing with number one. Now that's more like it.
Now, the final chapter, students, in Bosworth's book of etiquette, personal hygiene. How will you separate yourselves from those barbaric hordes that exude a most malodorous air? Right Guard Sport from Gillette. Maximum protection and a fresh scent. A veritable olfactory medley. Right Guard Sport from Gillette. Anything less would be uncivilized. Raise your glasses, gentlemen, to civilization.
Well, there's the number for you to call anywhere across Canada. It's area code 416. The number is 449-3389. Call us collect. And if you're calling from the Toronto area, just eliminate that 416. The general manager and the executive vice president of baseball operations for the Toronto Blue Jays, Pat Gillick, is our guest. Is this like holiday time for you now, or what?
No, I think it isn't holiday time at all. It's sort of like the show's the easiest part to put on. It's behind the scenes getting ready. And that's kind of the way that we're going to be for the next 2 or 3 months, is getting ready for the next show, what comes out in spring training or the opening of the season. So really these months, October, November, December, and January, these are the months that we've got to get the things set up, get the club in place. So it's a very, very busy time. In fact, it's almost a busier time than during the season. The season's usually the easiest part. It's after the season, getting ready for the next show, that's the tough one.
You know, there has been much conversation about the fellows from the Dominican. I mean, there's no question that they are great players. I mean, you take George Bell, would be welcomed on any club because of his hitting ability. Tony Fernandez may be the best shortstop in baseball, and on it goes. But, you know, there's a perception about them that they are a disruptive influence within the organization. How do you respond to that?
Well, you know, I think that that George, probably the only one I think that is somewhat disruptive, I think, is George. And it's really, I don't think George does it intentionally. It's just, and I've said this many times before, and people say, well, you're brushing it off. You're always saying, that's George. Well, that is George. And he just got a very volatile type personality. But really, the rest of the guys, I think, the Manny Lee, Nelson Liriano, Tony Fernandez, I mean, Junior Felix, they're real quiet, very much to themselves type guys.
Is it a language thing, do you think, as much as anything else, because they are not as fluent in English, and the media may detect from that there's an unfriendliness?
Well, I think that sometimes there's a perception by the media that they understand more than they do, and I think sometimes the English language, I'm not really making an excuse for them, but sometimes the English language is a tough language, and there's so many words that mean have different meanings, and I think that sometimes the players really aren't clear on what they're asking. And the other thing is that, you know, you come in after a game and you've just lost a tough game, or guys made an error or something of that nature, and I don't think some of the kids from down there are used to the media hitting them with questions, bam, 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 right and left. So, you know, I think they're getting better, and I think they're getting, you know, more media-oriented. But I think it's a new experience for them.
All right, from North York, Dan is standing by. Go ahead, Dan, you're up next.
How you doing, Pat?
I'm doing fine.
I just want to congratulate you on the good season this year.
Thank you.
You and Paul Beeston, I think, have done a good job with the Jays over the years.
And my question is, the start of this year you had problems with Jimmy Williams and George Bell on the DH situation. Cito seemed to calm the waters there. Now, I know George wants to play every day, and, you know, he makes his errors out there, but the guy's attitude, you got to let him go out there and play. Do you think maybe that Cito, if he is back next year, can convince George that, you know, maybe some of the younger guys should be out there, and maybe George needs to take a day off so these guys can play and he can DH?
Well, the funny thing that's happened the last couple of months of the season was that really George, when he did DH, he asked Cito to DH him. And I think that's kind of Cito's game plan. He's kind of laid back and really not pushed the issue with George to DH. So when you've seen George in there DHing, other than the time since he injured his elbow in Detroit, but before that when he DH'd, it was at his request. So I think that's going to happen more and more next year. So I don't think you're going to see a total 162 games DH by George Bell, but I would think that next season probably you're going to see, I would say, somewhere between 50 and 60 games that he's going to DH for our ball club. So it's a gradual thing, and I think George realizes it, and it's just something that we're going to kind of ease into, because George really, as compared to 1988, he had a pretty good season defensively out there. There are times that you know, he'll drop a ball, and there are times he'll misplay a ball, but I think overall he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, Kevin Mitchell dropped a ball today, too, in that San Francisco and Chicago series. So I guess everybody drops them. But, Pat, let's, you know, there was the outfield that was going to be together for all time. We had Barfield, Mosby, and Bell, and they were the outfield that was going to carry us to great heights, and now, of course, that's not to be the case. Tell me the outfield of the future for the Blue Jays.
Well, it's probably going to be Glenn Allen Hill and Junior Felix are going to be two of them, and I can tell you that for sure. I think down the road, along with Rob Ducey, those are the three young men that we're looking forward to, is Ducey, Felix, and Glenn Allen Hill. You know, certainly Mookie Wilson, and we have George Bell and Lloyd Mosby, but I'd say a couple years down the line, two of those guys are going to be playing out there.
Well, Mosby is history. I mean, you tried to peddle him last year, and nobody take him, so, I mean, why would you keep him this year?
Well, as I say, I don't make those determinations until I talk to my people, and we're going to do some talking on Thursday and Friday this week, and we'll make that decision at that time. But, you know, Shaker has had 2 off years, and hasn't been given us the production we need, so there's a very good possibility there could be a change.
Lincoln from Thunder Bay, Ontario is on the line. Go ahead, Lincoln.
Hi, Pat.
How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Listen, what I want to talk about, well, first of all, I want to congratulate you guys on a good season. No one in the East had a great season except for maybe Baltimore, but by their standards anyway. But what I wanted to get at was your advanced scouting. You guys, you know, you have your advanced scouts, and I wondered if you could comment a bit on, you know, what type of job they've been doing. And what gets me about the advanced scouting is a situation that happened with Stottlemyre in a late season game against Milwaukee, where the scouting reports on Molitor was that he was a first ball fastball hitter, and first thing that happens is Stottlemyre throws Molitor a fastball, and bang, it's out of the park, eh? And I'm just wondering, like, is this type of situation, and this has happened more than once to the Jays this year, is this like they didn't listen to the scouts, or the scouts were doing such a hot job, or what?
He shook Witt off.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, Witt gave him a breaking ball to open the game. I don't know if it was open in the game.
I think it was.
It was early in the game anyway.
Yeah.
He gave him a breaking ball sign because we all know Molitor is a first ball fastball hitter, and the way that you pitch Molitor is that you throw him breaking stuff away, you get him leaning over the plate, and then you bust him inside with a fastball, and that was our scouting report. Stottlemyre knew that, Witt knew it, and Witt gave him a breaking ball sign. Stottlemyre shook him off and threw a fastball. He was trying to get a fastball in on him. You know, this about our advanced scouting, when we had our meeting, you know, prior to the Oakland series, our advanced scouts all said, you keep Ricky Henderson off base and you're going to win. If you don't keep him off base, you're going to have trouble. So, you know, we think they're doing a great job, and we not only keep charts on the bench on every game, you know, we also have our advanced scouts, and so we commingle those together, and they come out with what we think is a pretty good game plan. So we're happy with it.
Well, there's no question about it that when they told you to keep him off base, that was pretty good advice, but it's harder to do than just talk about it.
Well, I think Ricky Henderson probably, if you watch him, he's probably has the best knack of getting a base on balls than anyone. You know, he crouches, he's got a small strike zone, and he doesn't swing at a lot of bad pitches. He's very patient at the plate. He doesn't swing until he really has to swing. And so, you know, Ricky Henderson's a good talent. He's a good ball player, and so consequently, I think that's the same thing that Frisco is going to run into. If they can keep Henderson off base, they got a chance to beat this close. If they don't, you know, I think they're going to be in for the same type of game that we were into.
Let's go to Sarnia, Ontario, where Paul is standing by. Go ahead, Paul. You're up next. Hello, Paul. Go ahead. Okay, Paul is history. He obviously got so excited about the show he had to run off for a while. But, you know, when you talk about the Blue Jays, I mean, people have a tendency to forget that Seattle came in at the same time that you did when you were both expansion ball clubs, and Seattle has never finished above 500. What do you think the secret of your success has been, other than your own brilliance, of course?
I think continuity more than anything else. And I think that, you know, fortunately, the fans here in Toronto kind of grew up with a ball club. I think a lot of the fans that we had in '77, they're still with us, and so they saw a lot of the players mature, the Barfields and the Mosbys and the George Bells. Willie Upshaw, players like that, Damaso Garcia. I think the fans grew with the ball club. They knew that we had a game plan, which way we were going, that we weren't going to do a lot of crazy things. And we've had the same management here since '77. Seattle's had about 3 different ownerships. They've had about 5 different general managers. And so every time you change general managers, the guy that's coming in has got to do something a little different. If not, why not keep the guy you had previously? So they've had 5 turnovers in the way they do things, be it player personnel, be it player development, be it scouting, whatever it might be. And when you do that, Pat, you know yourself, you lose something. So I think that the big thing with us has been the same ownership that we've had from day one. As I say, the same management, and basically I've got a lot of the guys here that started out with us, Bob Maddock, you know, Al Lamacchia, Paul Beeston. We've all been around since day one, so I think that's been the big plus for our ball club.
How close have you ever come to leaving?
Not that close. I like it here. I've had a couple opportunities to go other spots, but my wife and I both like it here. And as I said many times before, you know, in sports you never know. There will come a time when they move you on, or comes times when you think you should move on. You've overstayed your welcome. So hopefully that won't come, but someday it will. But I wouldn't mind ending myself right here. What's the matter with 49,000 down there every night?
Well, I can guarantee you one thing, Pat is going to stay here for at least another 12 minutes. He's on It's Your Call, and he'd welcome your call if you want to give him a shout. We'll be back after this time out.
Last year, Nissan introduced the incredible new Z for world-class performance. The Maxima, the 4-door sports car for luxury class performance, and the 240SX, performance for the fun of it. This year, Nissan introduces the Stanza. Now you can get something completely different in a performance car. Your family.
Now, you look like a smart kind of person. Where do you think you'd get the best price on your next TV? From a store that buys this many? Or this many? Or this many? You've got it. Granada buys more color TVs than anyone else. So you get the best prices guaranteed whether you buy, lease, or rent. It's one of the advantages of dealing with number one. I knew you'd get it.
You're looking sharp, you're looking good, you've come so far, and we know how to make the most of who you are. Father to son, it's what we've always done. Gillette.
The Gillette Atra Plus system and Gillette Foamy Shave Cream, together the best a man can get.
The best a man can get.
Here's McGuire coming on to the field.
Yeah, this could be the last play of the season for these guys, Bubba.
That's the truth, partner.
Third down and long, and here's the snap. Looks like play action, and what a block by Crawford. He just threw it unmarked and crushed him. McGuire's in the clear, and Bukowski made the big play, and what a play. Let's look at it again.
The trap bell going the wrong way. Leveled Martin cleared the lane here, and Bukowski and McGuire hooked up to make it to the 1.
Yeah, first and goal, what should be an easy 6.
Are you, Bruce?
Let's talk about it.
Well, Bubba.
Heck of a play, partner.
Pat Gillick, the general manager, the executive vice president of baseball operations, is with me. We've only got a few minutes to go, and we want to get as many calls in as possible. So, Frank, here in Toronto, you go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
I'd like to congratulate Pat Gillick and the rest of the Blue Jay team for having a wonderful year.
Thank you very much.
One question I wanted to ask, and to me, I think it would have made a big difference in Sunday's game. When Eckersley apparently had sandpaper in his gloves, why wasn't the game protested more, or why weren't the umpires told to check his turtleneck when he put it in his turtleneck?
Well, Cito told him that he wanted him checked, and I think the response from the umpire was, what do you want me to do, undress him in front of 50,000 people out here? My response would be, yeah, if you think he's got sandpaper, you better undress him. And, you know, I'm a little bit upset about the whole thing myself from the standpoint that we've got a tape, and we know that he had something on the mound. We're sending that tape to the league president and see what goes from there. But Cito did all he could. He pushed Rick Reed, he pushed Phillips, the crew chief, to search him, and they wouldn't go any further than they did. But he did definitely put something in his pants, and he had dropped the emery board on the mound, went down and picked it up, and then was trying to stuff it down his turtleneck, and then finally ended up stuffing it in his pants. So as I say, Cito did all he could. There was a lot, as you read in the paper, there was a lot of name calling went on, there was a lot of profanity went on. He got a little bit heated. In fact, you know, Cito challenged both Eckersley and Phillips, the third baseman, to come across the line and would take him on because there were some very, very strong words said.
How common is this?
I don't think it's that common, but I'll tell you what happens a little bit, Pat, is the guys that come in, relief pitchers, come in late in the game, okay? And you've, usually we use about 4 dozen balls in a game. Well, if there's a lot of balls being fouled off, those 4 dozen balls that are rubbed up, maybe they're up in the stands, maybe they've already been used. So now a guy gets a slick ball, and he wants to get a little bit better grip on the ball. So consequently, you've heard of thumbtacks, you heard of emery boards, you heard of sandpaper, whatever it might be. Emery boards, sandpaper, almost the same thing. They want to get a little roughness on that ball to get a little better grip because it's a little bit slick, and I think that's what Eckersley would do. Remember last year, I think in the playoff between the Dodgers and the Mets, I think they put Howell on the pines for a couple of days because they cut him with pine tar. But it's more to get a grip than anything else.
But here's what I find very strange. Why does the umpire not see that ball when, I mean, the batter obviously would say, hey, this thing is acting strangely.
Well, the umpire is going to say, well, it was, they like to stay away from trouble. They like to stay away from controversy. You know, we went through 5 games of this series, and there was, the umpires are very inconspicuous, and that's the way I like to see them. And so they said, oh my gosh, now it's the 9th inning of this game, and now we're going to get into trouble. Well, they want to, unfortunately, avoid trouble as much as possible. So they'll, you know, say, well, maybe it was a rock on the ground, or maybe it was a ball was hit off the plate, or in our park especially with AstroTurf, you say, well, a ball got hit on the turf and roughed up. They want to try to avoid confrontation or avoid controversy, and unfortunately, sometimes I'd like to see them take a little firmer hand in these matters.
Let's go to St. Catharines, Ontario. John is standing by. Go ahead, John.
How you doing, Pat?
Hey, John.
Just want to congratulate you on the win in the East Division this year. Everybody was down on Toronto, and is glad to see that that they came back and played well.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask you a question about Al Leiter there, and with Flanagan getting up in age, and you got a young guy in Leiter. Do you think that Flanagan, you know, will have his place in the rotation taken by Al Leiter
Okay, so the question
that was sort of the game plan when we got Leiter, was that we thought maybe he wasn't going to be productive for us in '89, but maybe '90 he was going to step in there. But you know, he had an arm injury. He had surgery on his arm. The prognosis is good right now that he's going to come back. He's feeling great, but we'll just have to wait and see. But right now, certainly Al Leiter, Mauro Gazzo, Steve Cummings, Alex Sanchez. We've got another guy down at Syracuse, Willie Blair. Those are all some young guys that would have a chance to make our club next year. But as I said earlier in the program, you know, we would like to, if at all possible, to get a guy that could give us 7 or 8 innings. And so consequently, if the situation arose where we had to give up a couple of guys or 3 for 1 to get that type of pitcher that could go in and give us, as I said, 15 complete ball games, we'd probably do that.
Okay, let's take our final call of the evening. Ellen from Toronto to chat with Pat Gillick. Go ahead.
Hi, Pat.
How are you, Ellen?
Fine, thanks. I just want to find out what you're going to be doing with Ernie Witt next year. We all know he doesn't have a contract. And do you plan on going with 3 catchers?
That's something we're going to discuss on Thursday and Friday this week when we have our meeting here. You know, Ernie's been here since day one and original Blue Jay. He didn't have the type of second half that he usually has, but you know, he does an adequate job right now behind the plate. He's a hard-nosed guy. He wants to win. So certainly, you know, at this point, you know, Ernie's on the Blue Jays, and we'll have to make a determination, you know, what his future might be. He can't be a free agent. He was a free agent in '86, so consequently, he had a 3-year contract for '87, '8, and '9. So he's got another 2 years before free agency. So if he does decide, or we decide that he comes back with the Blue Jays, he'll be here in '90. He can't go someplace else.
Okay, let me ask you, just to wrap up the show, how many new faces do you think we're liable to see when you break camp next spring?
I would probably say that we would see probably 3 to 4. I would say probably somewhere.
Could it be as high as 6?
I would say 6 will be a little high, but I could say 3 or 4 for sure.
You know, it's always tougher to win when you've won once before. And you predicted on this show that you would win the American League East at the start of last season. Can you win again in '90?
Yeah, we'll win in '90. We've got a lot of young people that are coming on. You know, you look at our infield, McGriff and the 2 guys at second, Fernandez and Gruber, they're all young guys. You know, we've got a couple guys behind Witt and Myers and Borders. And if we get our outfield in shape, we'll be fine.
Pat, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for dropping by. Pat Gillick was our guest, and we'll look for you next Monday on It's Your Call.
It's Your Call, brought to you by Labatt's Blue. It's the way we play.
Body Break with Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod.